You heard the recording thing. Welcome, welcome on a lovely fall day. Gee, it's November already, and the leaves are just starting to turn. I remember, wasn't that long ago when this happened in October. Anyway, so much for our global warming statement for today. What we're really gonna do, boom, boom, boom. Okay, and I'll post this, I'll make notes and whatnot as we go. We have an assignment due this week. Today we're going to talk about the beginning of ethics. One of the things that I'm really stressing in this course, everybody worries about like media bias and truth and all of that stuff. Great, but when all this media history stuff started, no one cared. It was all about just free speech means free to have an opinion, have an idea, a right to be wrong. But they expected bias. Nobody thought of media ethics. Didn't happen until the 20th century. And why? We'll talk about it today. And it has something to do with Chattanooga. Anyway, media ethics, what we'll have is an essay after today's presentation. We have, now the prompt is, I'll show you in a minute, but after we talk about ethics, your usual essay, 300 plus words with 2 outside sources this time. We want one example of really good media ethics and one example of really bad media ethics, and back them up with a code of ethics showing what's right or wrong, and then at least one more source explaining the specifics of your situation. And I'll show you the prompt in a minute, but this is just like letting you know what's going on. Next Thursday, today we're going to talk about ethics. Thursday, we're going to talk about using ethics and big media, propaganda and public relations. That's chapter 6 in your book. And now we'll do a test review. By the way, as always, I will take drafts until Friday afternoon. Okay, test review. Look at y'all. You did better. This is usually what I bump it up to from the low 70s. This is what it should look like. We've had a dozen A's. So you guys are getting it. I'm making the effort to be more accessible, a little less on application, a little bit more of just identifying some of the issues. Of course, there is some thought in there too. You're all doing better. High score is a 96. I'm still going to bump this up 4 points after we're done here. So yeah, you all are starting to get it. I'm adjusting a little bit to your needs and you're getting it. Anyway, here's what we went over. 19th century founders believed there should be the one thing they agreed on, prior restraint. Anybody remember what prior restraint is? Say so in chat if you want. But yeah, prior restraint is censoring media content before it's printed or broadcast. The government isn't going to go in and say, hey, you can't do that. They're not going to. There you go. Excellent. Thank you, Quentin, as always. Alien and Sedition Act allowed government to jail critics. It still happens. Magazine means storehouse. Very good. Creation of high-speed rest, increased literacy rate. This is one, you know, I'm always going to be talking a little about the evolution of bias. It did not. Increased literacy did not mean people wanted unbiased media. It meant more people could read biased media. But no, we've said this repeatedly. The whole idea, they expected bias. It didn't really come up until the 20th century, and we'll talk a little about that today. I know that it's hard to accept that, but this one of the big themes of this course is this concept of media ethics, entirely new. Increased readership led to the women's movement. That's good. Emil Berliner, almost everybody gave us the gramophone. Penny press, cheap newspapers, correct. Unintended consequences, increased literacy among women, people of color, and immigrants, very good. Morse invented Morse code, not the telegraph. Wheatcroft and Gray, more or less, in the UK, put the telegraph together. You got that. Unintended consequences, night shift. Impact of the telegraph, you got that. Social consequences, more, well, you see, you're all doing good. Frederick Douglass, you knew. Uncle Tom's Cabin. High-speed press brought that readership to more people. You see how all this stuff comes together. Photography conveys emotion, but doesn't tell you what's going on. Aha, Daguerre. He did not invent photography. Photography, the basics of it, as we see again and again, were around for a while. It was Nicephore Niepce who invented the first and the real photograph. It was called a heliograph. He died, and Daguerre took over the whole thing, perfected the photographic method, and then went, voila, I have made photography. He introduced it to the world and he marketed it. That's why it's called the daguerreotype and not the Niepce type, because he was the smart guy who marketed it and put his name on it, though he didn't entirely invent it, which is exactly very similar. Morse did not invent the telegraph. He made the software. We will see this again and again and again as inventions get more complicated. The inventors, or the ones who get credit for the inventions, they take pieces from other places, put it together, and then take the credit. So much of the credit comes down to marketing and patents and all that stuff. And we'll see that again and again and again. Impact, early photography, emotional impact. Brady brought home dead bodies, unfortunately, well, pictures of dead bodies. Telegraph helped them because they were able to coordinate better. We saw Lincoln do that. Yellow journalism, which there was no consideration of ethics. There you go. Grover Cleveland, subject of a scandal. Give us the pictures, we'll give him the war. This is why people are starting to think of ethics, because you have this big, powerful media thing, and members of the public, politicians, are starting to use it to make policy, to make war. And if you have an institution that powerful, maybe we should think about how to handle it. Spanish-American War, supported by media under false pretenses, right? Teddy Roosevelt, again, using the media for self-promotion. Bell invented the phone company more than really the telephone. He put it together, bunches of people worked on the telephone. He just got the patent. Telegraph made you work late hours. Yep, free press was scandalous, biased, and loosely controlled. There you go. That's how everything was until the 20th century. The phonograph changed the way we hear the media. Okay. No, see, Grover Cleveland showed that sex scandals go back anything we talk about today goes back 140 years. The need for media, and before even Cleveland, certainly there was a lot of controversy about Thomas Jefferson's personal life. But no, people didn't see the need for media ethics because of Grover Cleveland. They accepted that that's the way the media was. It really wasn't until 20 years later, where we're getting up to now, that people started thinking about that. See, I really want you to get away from this idea that anyone cared about media ethics. And we'll talk about why today. Alexander Graham Bell was you got that right. Edison, Morse code is the killer app. International telegraph line, typewriter. See, and I may ask this one again, because this is from our first, our first unit, and this comes up again and again, and you can look back at your notes. There are there's 4 characteristics of media that we went through. First and foremost, it is a medium that carries a message between a sender and an audience. The typewriter doesn't carry any messages unless you pick up that typewriter and throw it across the room. It is a tool that can be used by the media. It's not any more of a medium itself than a pencil is. This is one of those ones where, and I'm not going to do a lot of this anymore, but this is the kind of things I really want you to think about, because it keeps coming up again and again. When we talk about media issues, folks come up with non-media topics. So this might come up again, because I really want you to know what's media, what's not. Rise of women's movement was related to high-speed press. Yeah, Uncle Tom's Cabin you got. Okay, muckrakers we knew. Yellow journalism was low-key and responsible. No, yellow journalism was anything but. It was very loud and irresponsible. Penny press, Civil War, Frederick Douglass. See, overall, you all did well. I'm still going to bump it up 4 points, but you did good. Anyway, coming back, here's what we do. So we start with the beginning of ethics. Why do we need ethics? It wasn't because there was any big reaction. It was because, and we'll go over this again, folks started thinking about we have a big, powerful medium. Folks started to use that. Hearst and Pulitzer arguably got us into a war, because they pushed this narrative that the Spanish blew up our battleship. So yeah, media was powerful. And maybe some folks started doing something about it. Here's a little bit of setting the mood. We won't get to him. Okay, I'll have to use another browser for this. Okay,
Did you read the newspaper this morning? Maybe you watched a morning news show or listened to news updates broadcast from your favorite radio station. Or if you're like me, you take regular work breaks to skim headlines on the internet and look at news updates on your Twitter feed. Each of these methods represents the use of mass media. Mass media consists of any means of communication intended to reach a general public audience. Note that
See, a typewriter doesn't reach an audience. See, these are a little reinforcement.
mass media is widely used to reference the entire public communications industry, including newspapers, magazines, flyers, billboards, automated telemarketing, radio broadcasts, television broadcasts, internet articles, and social media posts. Studies show that mass media indirectly influences commerce, culture,
And this is where we're going to go in a minute, that when real formal media studies occurred, folks started to think about the influence and effects that the media had on society. And Thomas Paine didn't think he was going to make America become an independent country. He was just saying what was on his mind. Harriet Beecher Stowe did not think she was going to mobilize millions of readers in the North. She just wanted to tell a story. By the time we got to the 1890s and the early 20th century, both critics, media people, and the public is starting to think, we can really, this media thing can really do something.
and politics. In terms of politics, mass media allows the public to see and hear candidates early in.
Yeah, we know that. Let's get a little ahead. Okay.
So highlights particular political issues and social problems for the audience. These days, most politicians engage the mass media for self-promotion purposes.
Teddy Roosevelt, Abraham Lincoln. Remember, Lincoln made sure his face was everywhere. He posed for a lot of pictures to look like he was a serious leader. He wrote articles and letters and editorials and put them in the newspaper so people would listen. Yeah. Again, 1800s, people are starting to really use this powerful new medium.
This includes things like broadcasting their political advertisements, making television interviews, and
and it goes back, they're doing all of those things. Now in other countries
media,
like China,
this is known as state media. Let's take a
don't
closer
have a free
look at a
press.
few of the more popular types of mass media.
Actually, in China, yesterday, President Xi Jinping issued an edict that you can't say anything bad about him or you're going to jail. This country, we have something different.
In the 19th and early 20th centuries, the print media was the most dominant form of media. Print media is made up of books, newspapers, newsletters, and magazines. It's any communication intended for the general public that's lightweight, portable, and printed on paper. Print media in the United States essentially began with the Federalist Papers, which were published and distributed to promote
during the days of the Constitution, it was Hamilton was trying to make a strong federal government. And see, there it says, Hamilton, right up there. And so he circulated the Federalist Papers to try to form a strong central government. But the difference is he wasn't looking for a mass audience. He was looking to try to convince the few white male property owners out there.
Of the Constitution. For nearly 200 years, newspapers were politically run.
Remember, Pulitzer was for Blaine and Hearst was for Cleveland. So yeah, I mean, all of this bias stuff, that's the way it was, and that's what everybody expected.
But by the mid-19th century, print media had evolved. The evolution was due to several factors, including the invention of the telegraph.
There we go, a little bit of
The
review.
telegraph allowed newspapers to receive a steady stream of news dispatches from all over the world. New steam-powered printing presses allowed for higher supplies, while growing literacy rates led to higher demand. As a result, more independent newspapers joined the growing print media field, and some newspapers soon reached circulations in the millions. By the latter half of the 19th century, competition led to yellow journalism. This is journalism that exploits, distorts, or exaggerates in order to attract readers.
It was all bias. We came to that. People expected all that bias. So that's where we were. But some folks started thinking, this is an article that you can read separately, but the bottom line is Walter Lippmann was a newspaper columnist and theorist who started to think, wow, we have powerful media. And that really formally affects media, it affects society. Harold Lasswell, and I'll write this in, Harold Lasswell theorized what Lasswell called the magic bullet. Media is like a gun to the head, telling you what to think. Now, if these are actual theories at this point, remember from the beginning of the course, what's a theory and what's a concept? Okay, I'll remind you. A concept is just an idea saying, oh, big media. A theory is, yeah, so what? We have big, powerful media. Theory is the so what? Based on observation, other studies. Lippmann and Lasswell didn't just make this up. They were reading all over about media and put it together. And from their readings, they found, maybe this media thing is really powerful. And they start writing about it, promoting the idea that the media is powerful. It was kind of a vague notion with Hearst and Pulitzer, kind of a vague notion to Lincoln and Teddy Roosevelt, who used the media. But Lasswell and Lippmann said, it really is. And actually later on, when Karl Lazarsfeld did an actual experiment to check the theory, Lazarsfeld found in 1948 that no, it's not the magic bullet so much. It's your parents read the newspaper or watch TV. That, your bosses, your friends, they influence you more than the media does, but you're all reading the media anyway. Your social circle helps you figure it out. But anyway, powerful media, people start thinking about it. So you have big media having effects. Again, what do you do about it? I'll tell you what to do about it. It came from Memphis. Not Memphis, sorry. Came from Chattanooga, right here. I'll show you. Adolph Ox, Chattanooga.
All the news that's fit to print. The Adolph Ox story. Adolph Ox, born March 2nd, 1858, received little formal education, but he possessed talent and industry and had a personality to exploit them. At age 11, Adolph began working for the Knoxville Chronicle. He'd arrive at 5 a.m., fold the 50 papers for his route, walk 4 miles delivering them, go home for a brief breakfast, and by 7 a.m., be seated at school. In 1877, Adolph Ox began working with the Chattanooga Dispatch. The paper failed, but Ox stayed in Chattanooga. A year later, at 20, he bought the Chattanooga Daily Times, borrowing the $250 down payment and trying to turn around a struggling paper with just $12.50 in working capital.
Look familiar? Right there on George Avenue, there it is. You see the Times. Now the Times Free Press. But he's had this newspaper.
He tirelessly helped the city grow and was a major factor in creating a local economic boom in the 1880s. The Panic of 1893 dealt Ox a severe economic blow, and by 1896, he was on the verge of collapse, so he did what he did best. He bought another failing.
He bought this other crappy newspaper, the New York Times, which was just another yellow journalism rag. Interesting little digression. One of the original owners of the Times was the Jerome family, and who the daughter of the original owner was a woman named Jenny Jerome, who went to England, married the Duke of Marlborough, whose real last name was Churchill. Winston Churchill's mom owned the New York Times. Trivia, I'm not going to ask that on a test.
Newspaper, the New York Times. He drew on his experience at the Chattanooga Daily Times, and with $70,000 in credit and a letter from Grover Cleveland, he took over the collapsing New York Times. He made a promise to give
one go. Again, they're all political and biased. Grover Cleveland wanted Ox to be another Hearst. But Ox just says, you know, everybody's doing yellow journalism. Let's do something different. Why? Not because he cared about society all that much. He really did. He did care, but it wasn't the point. The point was, let's be different. Why be like every other paper? You're trying to stand out and build something different. And this was different than yellow journalism. That's the point. Impartiality without fear or favor.
Give the news impartially, without fear or favor.
Mm-hmm.
Then he lowered the price of the Times from 3 cents to 1 cent, in spite of others telling him to raise it to 5 cents.
There you go. Penny press.
The Times turned around and became one of the nation's great newspapers. In 1897, Ox coined the slogan, "All the news that's fit to print."
And there it is today, every day. Adolph Ox of Chattanooga came up with the slogan, "All the news that's fit to print." The question is, what's fit? Fit doesn't mean like space-wise. Fit means good, meaning that it's, you know, it's worthy. All the news that is worthy to print. Now, what's worthy? We're still working on that one. It's complicated. Did Ox have any kind of idea what he meant by fit to print? No. Just like free speech itself, ethics is more of a concept than it is a cut and dry nuts and bolts thing. We're still wrestling what's fit to print today.
Still appears on the front page of the New York Times today. On New Year's Eve, 1906, at midnight, Mr. Ox dropped an illuminated ball from the top of Times Tower in Times Square, starting an event that today is watched by millions. Adolph Ox left.
And they all got together. Ox, Eastman, who invented the Kodak camera, Edison, John Pershing, who was the general in World War I, and James Irvine. I forgot what he did, but they're all
Chattanooga after he bought the New York Times. Yet he continued to have an active interest in the community and its development. In 1935.
Does that look familiar? Right there on Macaulay Avenue. There, he was very involved. He never left in a lot of ways. His family is still here. I drive up the Ox Highway every day. So, I mean, his family's still around here.
5, he endowed a chair in city government and politics at what was then the University of Chattanooga. Mr. Ox was instrumental in preserving the historic Civil War Chickamauga battlefield, purchasing and donating the majority.
And unlike we talked about, like the big mounted statues, Ox wasn't about that. We have here at Point Park one big obelisk with a soldier on top. That soldier is neither Union or Confederate. The soldier is not threatening anybody. It's standing guard, and he's honoring all the people who died right here. So this is a whole different thing than Bedford Forest, and that was Adolph Ox.
The land from the Chattanooga Lookout Mountain Park. Today, the Ox Center for Metropolitan Studies, located in Chattanooga, offers research and data analysis services for local nonprofit organizations and local government. Adolph Ox, a part of Tennessee's unique history of law and liberty.
There you go, the end. Adolph Ox, originally from Knoxville, but he's part of our legacy. So that's really how this whole thing about media ethics started. Not because, oh, we're bad and we want to be good. No, it's about, hey, maybe we can stand out in the crowd and be something different. Once that concept takes place, other people start thinking about it. 1909, the Society of Professional Journalists, group of folks, newspaper editors from all over the country get together. I am on the board of directors for the Georgia State SPJ. I happen to live just over the line in Georgia. First Journalism School, University of Missouri. It's not just people making this stuff up. Folks are starting to study it, to do it well. There's this groundswell of all these little pieces coming together. 1922, the American Society of Newspaper Editors comes together. All the leaders in the field, including Adolph Ox, gets together in Indianapolis, and they write this. Canons of Journalism. They all get together and they decide how to put legs on Ox's concept. Be responsible, defend freedom of the press, avoid partisanship, be sincere, impartial, and fair. Very nice. We'll talk about why it isn't always like that in a second. Other people here's the modern code of ethics. Again, I was on a committee that helped put that together. Society declares 4 principles. They should take responsibility. Remember, neither speed nor format excuses inaccuracy. Don't make promises. All good stuff. Minimize harm. Ethical journalists do not hurt people. Balance the public's need with, you need information, but you also sometimes you have to consider the people who you're talking to. Recognize that even if you get information doesn't mean you have to publish it. Avoid pandering or lurid curiosity, even if others do. Act independently. Avoid conflicts of interest. Don't be biased. Don't be bought by a political campaign. Be accountable. Respond quickly. Explain what you're doing. All that good stuff. Do people do that? We'll talk about that in a second. Other folks. Okay, here's an international one. International, this is out of out of England, but these are general principles that folks agree on, who agree on responsible journalism worldwide. Truth and accuracy, independence, fairness and impartiality, be human and kind when possible, and accountable. You make a mistake, you admit it. You show people how it happens. Now, do we do that? We're not too good at it. Again, talk about why it's like that in a minute. Here is the Student Media Code of Ethics. I'm the local chair of our Student Media Board. Be responsible, be fair, be honest, accurate, independent, minimize harm, be accountable. You see, we're all getting these same messages again and again. National Press Photographers. I was very involved with them. Here's their code of ethics. Be accurate. Photographers, those paparazzi people. While photographing subjects, do not contribute, do not alter pictures, do not harass. Wow, photographers shouldn't harass people. Should be truthful, think proactively, be good and strive to maintain the spirits and again, be professional. And here's some definitions of it. Even public relations people. Public Relations Society of America. Yes, we provide a voice in the marketplace. They are responsible advocates for the people you work for. PR people are supposed to be honest. PR people aren't supposed to lie. Do they? Okay. We'll ask the questions here. Strengths, why do we do that? Helps define ethical behavior and provide examples. Anyway, these things here are lovely sources for your essays, all sorts of codes of ethics right here. Use one, use more than one for your essay. Here it is. Okay, those are why we have a code of ethics. Why don't we follow them? Anybody? Let's see who's there. Yes, yes, posting this with notes as we do it. As I do the notes, yep, this is what I'm starting to do. You don't just sit and watch this. I'm here to support you getting and understanding this stuff. So yes, I am going to post all of this. Anyway, that's the good stuff. Why don't we, if we have these codes of ethics out there, why don't people follow them? Anybody?
Money.
What?
I said money.
Money. You hit it. See, it goes different. There it goes. Right on. Money. If you don't hurt anybody, if you just do very nice stories about nice people and are totally responsible all the time, are people going to tune in? Look at what we're doing. Look at this week, Alec Baldwin. He accidentally shot somebody. Is that a huge story? Yeah, it's a huge story. Does it affect you and me? Nah. But people are interested because he's a famous turd ball. People don't like him. He's not very popular, but he's interesting. And so people watch because the ratings go up. If you have an accident, arrests, stuff like that, the ratings go up. So that's why you hit the nail on the head. It's money. Okay, weaknesses, no. There's no enforcement power. Purely voluntary. I mean, you can watch it, you can listen, but doesn't mean you have to do anything. Doesn't provide a financial incentive. So there you go. So yeah, it's a nice thing to think about, but the government doesn't enforce ethics. It's purely voluntary. And in a society that's money driven, not everybody follows it. Okay, those are ethical things. And again, ethics is voluntary. Law isn't. Law is enforced by government, police, and courts. Ethics are voluntary. They are personal and professional decisions. There you go. There is no ethics police. Nobody's going to, you might get in trouble in a job for being unethical, but you're not going to jail. There are no laws against being unethical. Okay. So when we talk about media ethics for this week's assignment, what are legal issues? Libel, you know, that's defamation, hurting someone's reputation. That's libel and slander. Now, the difference between libel and slander is libel is written or recorded. Slander is just hearsay. Okay. Other things that are legal issues, fraud. You don't have to tell the truth, but you can't rip people off. Obscenity. You could do some things, but not others. You can't go too far with obscenity. Same thing with privacy. Copyright. Who owns what? What other big legal issues does the government step in? What do you think? I mean, this is not the law class, but I want you to start thinking of the difference, you know, what you can't do. I'll put that together. Ethics are, okay. Law is what you can or cannot do. Ethics is what you should but you could. Okay. All right. Any other big? There's a few out there, but those are a lot of the bigger ones. Okay, when we talk about ethics, what are the big ethical issues we face in the media? Of course, first one, bias. We talk about that all the time. And we talked about at the beginning of this course, in history, you're making subjective judgments all the time. And one of those codes of ethics, you have, they talk about providing context. If you just have the facts, yes, you're accurate, but the context means, so what? What else happened to make this happen? And that's where you start getting accused of bias, because you get to pick and choose the context. But bias is always with us. Here's one, truth. No law says you have to tell the truth. You just can't defraud people. You just can't defraud people with your truth, with your lies. Other ethical issues. Okay, I'll ask. Violence. Is violence a legal issue or an ethical issue?
It's a legal issue, right?
Nope. Nope. Violence is an ethical issue. There is no law. There is no law that says media content has to be, there's no law against violence. Now, in Europe, there are. You could be as gnarly as you want. I used to be a newspaper reporter. I have been at murder scenes, fires, accidents. It can get fairly messy, but no law against it. We choose not to, because we choose to have our own limits, because privacy, offensiveness. If you turn people off too much, they're not going to read your paper or turn on your TV station. So, like you said at the beginning, it comes down to money. If the ratings go down, you go too far, the ratings go down. Things like video games and movies, ratings are voluntary. The people who make and distribute games and movies, they do it, they volunteer it because their audience likes it. The government doesn't require it, because the government is not going to tell you what's offensive and what's not. That's prior restraint. Other things that are ethical. Anyone? How about diversity? We talk about diversity in the media all the time. It is an ethical issue. There is no law saying you have to represent X people in X ways. No. The truth of the matter is the demographics of this country are changing. We have more people of color, more immigrants, African Americans, Hispanics, Asians, all of these different, there are more and more different people, and fewer and fewer, comparatively speaking, white evangelical Protestants. The former majority is becoming smaller and smaller, and it will be a minority if not today, within a couple of years. So diversity is just good business. You're reaching out to different growing audiences. And as an African-American friend of mine says, the only color that matters is green. And you know, that's why we have diversity. Other ethical issues. Privacy comes in both places. There are limits. There are, real government limits. The real thing, and I won't ask you this on a test, when you invade somebody's privacy to the point that you hurt them, it's called intrusion. That's with the legal trouble. But privacy, well, Mark Zuckerberg keeps all your data. He knows what you're looking at. And he can sell all of that. When I look up something on a social medium, I got some reading glasses a couple of days ago. And soon as I do that, boom, I get ads for it on social media. Why? Because Mark Zuckerberg and Facebook keep my data, and the eyeglass company buys it. So yeah, welcome to privacy. It's a real issue. On to victims. We complain about that all the time. The laws, the ethics are, you have to balance that out versus the public interest. But nasty stories that hurt people often give you higher ratings. Modern issues. Again, I'll call them cyber issues. We talked a lot about bullying. We talked about addictions, about body image. That's a good one. That's a very good one we'll put up there. Stereotypes. Yeah. So, privacy again. It ain't changing. Sex is always an issue. Largely ethical. Obscenity, particularly using people under 18, bad, illegal. But if something's legal, does that mean you should send some unsolicited invitation to somebody? Of course not, but it's not illegal. So any other modern things out there that can you think of? Okay. So here, that's ethics in a nutshell. And I have the prompt on your page. One good example of good ethics, one example of not so good ethics. And I will actually right now paste these on the prompt for your assignment. See, I'm thinking about new ways to support you all the time. And I will post these notes. Media ethics. Okay, 2 outside sources. Do Friday, I'll have, edit. here are some resources. So quote one of these. I already gave you, here you go, some sources. Look at them, see which one is relevant. Let me save. Okay. I will save these and I will post these shortly. So you let me, that's what we do. So this is where ethics comes from. The big lessons, and I'll write this in too. Here's the big lesson. One. Ethics is voluntary, not enforced by government. It is a concept like free speech that constantly evolves, but is difficult. And 3 started as a business marketing tool. It wasn't that Adolf Ox got up one day and said, aha, we're going to be good people. No, he says, we're going to stand out in the crowd and have stuff that's fit and impartial. Does that mean the New York Times is unbiased? God, no. Again, these are concepts that we're always trying to wrestle with. So that's what makes it a challenge. Anyway, I will post this shortly. I will do the, and I will post the notes. I will put the, and I will put the video up. Any other questions? Any things about what we want to do? Okay. Next time, we will talk about propaganda, because the concept here is, oh gosh, we have this big media thing. We should, from inside the media, stand out and do something proactive. Propaganda is, we have this big, powerful media. Maybe we can really use it to our advantage. Propaganda and PR next time. Anyway. Any other questions, answers, comments? I'll try to find a more interesting animal than a sleepy cat next time. Anyway, I appreciate it. We will see you Thursday.